Steelers fans, get ready for the news that just came out. A lot has happened in the last few hours, and you can't miss anything. A young coach is the perfect choice for the Steelers, and they're calling him the new Tomlin, and you'll understand why. And that's not all. Adam Schefter reveals something shocking about Mike McCarthy's situation. And to top it all off, a star receiver may finally return to Pittsburgh after years of controversy. Stick with me until the end so you don't miss anything. And the first piece of news, let's start by talking about the new Tomlin. Alright Steelers fans, let's get into the name that suddenly has everybody talking, Nate Scheelhaase. And listen, if the Steelers really want someone who brings the same energy, presence, and command the room vibe that Mike Tomlin had when he first walked in the door, this dude might actually be the closest thing to it in the entire coaching cycle. According to Jerry DeLocke from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Scheelhaase didn't just interview well, he impressed the room in a way that made people instantly think of Tomlin's breakout interview back in 2007. DeLocke even said he won't call Scheelhaase the top candidate yet, because some guys still need to meet with owner Art Rooney too, but the man clearly left a mark. And that's not coming out of nowhere. Around the league, people have been saying the same thing. Scheelhaase's presence, the way he communicates, the way he breaks down football. It gives off that this guy has something aura, the exact same vibe people describe when they talk about Tomlin's rise. There's even been talk about a potential package deal. Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula as head coach, and Scheelhaase, already praised for his offensive mind, stepping in as offensive coordinator. DeLocke called that a pretty strong combo. And honestly, for a team that needs a fresh spark without losing its identity, that's not crazy. Now, here's the catch. The Steelers can't bring him in for an in-person interview until next week because the Rams are playing in the NFC Championship game. But if the Steelers truly believe he might be the next great leader of the franchise, someone who naturally reminds them of Tomlin, then waiting a few extra days probably won't matter. And when you compare Scheelhaase's path to the coaches Pittsburgh has trusted before, the parallels get real obvious. The Steelers love hiring young, hungry, first-time head coaches who weren't already superstars in the coaching world. That was Bill Cowher, that was Mike Tomlin, and now Scheelhaase fits that mold too. Cowher was 34 with just 3 seasons as a DC before taking over. Tomlin was basically a college journeyman, VMI, Cincinnati, Memphis, Arkansas State, before landing on Tony Dungy's staff, then helping Tampa win a Super Bowl, then getting one single year as Minnesota's DC before Pittsburgh shocked the league and hired him at 34. Now look at Scheelhaase's arc. Former QB at Illinois, nearly 9,000 yards and 55 TDs in college, straight into coaching at his alma mater, built a resume at Illinois and Iowa State, handpicked by Sean McVay to join the Rams, quickly promoted to pass game coordinator. Helped produce a monster season. Matthew Stafford threw for 707 yards and 46 touchdowns. Rams finished with the most yards per game in the league, 394.6. That's not a small resume, that's a rocket. The only real question anyone has is experience. He hasn't been an NFL coordinator yet, but guess what? Tomlin had minimal coordinator experience too, and that worked out pretty well for Pittsburgh. And here's why the Tomlin comparison matters. It's not about being a clone. It's about being a natural leader who commands respect, builds culture, and gets players to punch above their weight. Tomlin did that for nearly 20 years. If Scheelhaase has even a fraction of that presence, plus a modern offensive mind, he becomes a very real contender. Pittsburgh is still early in the search. There are big names, veteran names, and outside-the-box names. But Scheelhaase, he's the one who's starting to sound like the guy nobody saw coming, which should feel familiar to Steelers fans. And while everyone was busy buzzing about Scheelhaase, another headline dropped out of nowhere. And it involves a Super Bowl winning coach who just jumped up the list. Now let's talk about the name that nobody expected to see this high on the Steelers list, Mike McCarthy. Yeah, the Super Bowl winning, longtime Packers and Cowboys head coach just became a legit contender for the Pittsburgh job after his interview. And according to Adam Schefter, he didn't just show up, he made a real impression. Schefter broke it down on Get Up, saying McCarthy doesn't fit the usual Steelers mold at all. Pittsburgh has made a habit of hiring young, defensive-minded head coaches for decades. That's the brand, that's the identity. But McCarthy, he's the total opposite. Older, offensive-driven, deeply experienced. And yet Schefter said he actually makes perfect sense for where the Steelers are right now. Why? Simple. The quarterback problem. Schefter called it exactly what it is. Quarterback purgatory. Pittsburgh isn't drafting high enough to land a future star. There aren't great free agent options. There aren't easy trade targets. And you're in a division with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. If you don't have an answer at quarterback, you're basically just trying to survive. Enter Mike McCarthy. He coached Aaron Rodgers for years in Green Bay, won a Super Bowl with him, knows how to build an offense around a talented but difficult quarterback. And here's the interesting part. Schefter suggested that hiring McCarthy might actually convince Rodgers to consider a reunion in Pittsburgh. Now, does Rodgers solve everything? No. He's nearly 42. You're not building the next 10 years around him, but does he buy you time? Absolutely. And right now, time might be the most valuable thing the Steelers could get. Let's not forget McCarthy's resume either. 174 wins, 11 playoff victories, a Lombardi trophy, nearly 4 decades of experience. Still a Pittsburgh native who'd probably crawl to the stadium for this job. He's not the flashy pick, he's not the future of football pick, but he might be the stabilizer. The guy who brings structure, competence, and a real plan to an offense that has been lost for years. Schefter didn't say McCarthy is the favorite, but he made one thing clear. He is in play. And coming from a reporter who rarely exaggerates coaching rumors, that's meaningful. So now we've got a young rising star who looks like the next Tomlin, and a proven veteran with a Lombardi on his shelf, both in striking distance of the Steelers' job, and the chaos isn't slowing down. And just when you thought the coaching drama was enough, another storyline popped back to life, one that could finally fix Pittsburgh's biggest offensive problem. Alright, Steelers fans, let's talk wide receivers, because this situation has been a roller coaster for years. Pittsburgh keeps finding a WR1, but the WR2 spot, man, it's been musical chairs. And now, a familiar name is suddenly back in play. Brandon Aiyuk. Remember the chase in 2024? The Steelers practically lived on the phone with the 49ers trying to get Aiyuk. The deal was at the goal line. Everyone thought it was happening, and all he had to do was give the green light. Then boom, he signed a massive 4-year, $120 million extension instead. But it turned into a disaster. Worst season of his career, brutal ACL tear, and then a complete fallout with the Niners. It got messy enough that GM John Lynch came out and basically said, yeah, he's done here. When a GM admits that publicly, that's it. Door closed. Aiyuk is gone. And that's where the Steelers come in. Again, Pittsburgh already has DK Metcalf locked in as the clear WR1, but after trading George Pickens to Dallas and watching Roman Wilson flame out, the offense has been starving for someone who can actually complement the top guy. They even had to trot out Adam Thielen, 35, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 31, just to get through the season. That's when you know things are rough. Here's the key. Aiyuk is only 27 years old. Yes, he hasn't played in 2 seasons. Yes, he's coming off a major knee injury, but because of all that, he's finally affordable. If the Niners cut him, and all signs say they will unless they eat half the contract, Pittsburgh suddenly has a real shot. You're not paying WR1 money. You're not risking your cap future. You're handing him a 1-year prove-it deal, letting him rebuild his value and giving the offense the reliable WR2 it desperately needs. Worst case? He's a low-cost gamble. Best case? You just landed a former Pro Bowl caliber receiver who doesn't need to be the star, just the perfect complement to Metcalf. For a team that's been begging for stability at the position, this might be the cleanest win available. Man, the Steelers are standing at a crossroads. A rising coach, a proven veteran, and a shot at finally fixing the receiver room. But what move would you make first? Drop your take in the comments, and if you bleed black and gold, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.